So, Professor Monton, thank you so much for joining us on the Idea of the Future podcast today.
You're welcome.
I'd like for our listeners to first get to know you a little bit. Some of our listeners who follow the ID debate might know your name and might have followed your work. Others who even follow it closely might not have heard of you, and I really hope that that will change in the future. Just to give a little bit of background, I first discovered you, Professor Monton, a couple years ago when I was working on a law review article that ended up being published in Montana Law Review that was reviewing the Kitzmiller ruling. And as I was writing on it, I was doing some research on philosophy of science, particularly philosophers who have made the argument that something doesn't have to be correct for it to be scientific, that you could be scientific and you could yet be wrong. And in doing that research on the internet, I came across an article you had written about the constitutionality of teaching intelligent design, and you were critiquing Judge Jones' arguments that an idea is not science, and I found your viewpoint to be very refreshing and very compelling, and it happened to cohere with some of the arguments that we were making, and so we ended up citing your work quite a bit in our law review article, which I enjoyed reading very much. So, Professor Monton, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a little bit. So, could you first give us a little bit of background? Just what is your educational background, and sort of where do you come from intellectually in this debate?
Sure. I am an atheist, which most people would think that would mean I would be a virulent anti-intelligent design person. And I'm not. I actually find some of the intelligent design arguments at least somewhat plausible and worth taking seriously within academia. And I'm unhappy with the sort of unfair and false criticisms that a lot of my fellow philosophers and academics have given of intelligent design. I'm also, for the record, unhappy with some of the intelligent design arguments. I think that even though some of them are wrong, they could actually be given better than current intelligent design proponents are giving them. So I'm trying really to elevate the debate on both sides. I got interested in these issues through my background in philosophy of physics, actually. I got a PhD from Princeton in 1999 in philosophy, specializing in philosophy of physics. And then I got interested in probability theory, and I can't remember how I first came across it, but I started reading about the fine-tuning argument as an argument for the existence of God or some sort of cosmic designer that is a probabilistic physics-based argument. And so I was unhappy with what both sides of the argument were saying, and so I wrote this paper called God, Fine-Tuning, and the Problem of Old Evidence, which is available on my website, which is bradleymonton.com. And in that paper, I tried to say that the fine-tuning argument was a somewhat plausible argument, but not an argument that would force one to believe in God or some sort of cosmic designer. And from there, I got interested in science-based arguments for the existence of God more generally, and that, of course, led me into the whole intelligent design literature.
So you did your PhD in philosophy at Princeton, and you focused on, you said, philosophy of physics. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about what you studied in your PhD?
Yeah, there I was working on philosophy of quantum mechanics, particularly what quantum mechanics basically says strange things about the way the world is, but different versions of quantum mechanics, different interpretations of quantum mechanics say different things about how the world is strange. And obviously one could get more specific, but that's the basic idea. And so my dissertation was basically going through different versions of quantum mechanics and trying to figure out exactly what they're saying about the world and exactly how observers are represented in the theory.
So when you're at a dinner party trying to describe somebody while you studying your PhD, is that sort of how you boil it down? Because I know another person like you who studied philosophy of physics. Actually, it's Bruce Gordon here at the Discovery Institute. And I got to say, it is one of the most intellectual heavyweight subjects I think you can wade into. So
yeah. I'm certainly glad I'm doing it. I went into, physics as an undergraduate thinking that I wanted to discover fundamental truths about the nature of the world. And I didn't even know what philosophy was. And then when I was a freshman, I took a humanities class, and we read the Book of Job as part of this interdisciplinary humanities class. And my professor in that class took the opportunity to tell us about the sort of standard philosophical arguments for and against the existence of God. And that was my first introduction to philosophy, and I was hooked, and I still think that that's like one of the most important issues that philosophers could discuss. Because obviously, whether God exists or not is like a fundamentally important issue in terms of how to understand the world. Maybe, I mean, it can be an important issue in terms of how you live your life, right? If you're a Christian versus an atheist, you're hopefully going to live your life differently.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you as an
well.
atheist would I'm sure like to say that atheists tend to be moral people, and I
right,
certainly have known
I
many
didn't mean that
atheists.
way.
Yeah. I mean, I have known many atheists who were very, very moral people. So, I certainly am not somebody who says that if you become an atheist, somehow you,
Right.
But you know what I'm saying.
For the record, I believe in objective morality, even though I'm an atheist, and I can give you my quick argument as to why, if you want to hear that. But what I was thinking of is that there are some people who call themselves Christians, but they're sort of like CE Christians. They go to church on Christmas and Easter, and that's about it.
Sure.
And then there are other people, who go on mission trips and try to proselytize and take this sort of worldview that Christianity provides really seriously, and work to try to understand that worldview better, and work to do apologetics for that worldview. I guess maybe this is just my personal statement of what I'm like, but if I were to be a Christian, I would be a Christian like that, where I would be like defending the worldview. I would join the Discovery Institute.
Well, we have non-Christians here as well. Believe it or not, there are folks who are agnostics that are involved with the ID issue here at Discovery. But I can definitely appreciate what you say. I think that and I think that we can find some common ground here. That there are people of many worldviews who kind of don't think about the bigger picture issues in life. They kind of skate through, not asking the hard questions, not wanting the hard questions to influence the way they live their lives, not really seeking to sort of better themselves through a lot of self-introspection. I think that there are people in many worldviews who do that, and people in many worldviews who don't do that. In some ways, I feel more kinship with the atheist who is very self-introspective and takes these issues very seriously than I do myself being a Christian, than I do with the Christian who just doesn't care about these bigger picture questions. And as you said, goes to church twice a year and just doesn't think very much about these kind of things. So I enjoy these debates, as I'm sure you do as well.